Vintage lenses are making a huge comeback in the industry today. From attractive prices to very interesting looks, they're becoming super desirable. But should you get one? Well, that's what we're going to find out today. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Freeman, and today we're going to take a look at this king of bokeh. This is the Helios 44 58mm f2 fully manual prime Soviet lens. This lens has some very interesting characteristics. It's mainly known for its swirly bokeh. So the whole reasoning behind vintage lenses is that they have character, they have personalities, and the personalities come from the way that the lenses were made. Now, if you were to go to the factory today and you're going to look at the assembly line, you're going to see that the lenses are stamped in exactly the same way by these precision machines. So any lens you're going to pick up from the line, you're going to see that they're going to have exactly identical looks and characteristics. Back in the day, they didn't have such quality control. So you did not know exactly what to expect. Two similar lenses or two exactly the same lenses could produce different effects. So because of the swirly bokeh that this lens produces, you basically have a $50 cinematic lens, which is super cool. Now, unlike other reviews that are focused more on the photography aspect, we're interested in the footage that this lens can recreate. As with any lens, we start off with its technical aspects. They dictate where, how, and when you can use this lens. The first thing is that this is a 58mm lens. A 58mm on a full frame sensor is going to be equivalent to I believe 87mm on an APS-C. I am using this on my Sony, which is a full frame camera. It works great. The focus distance on this lens is anywhere from half a meter to infinity. Half a meter is about a foot and a half, so that is how close you're going to be able to get to the subject and keep it in focus. If you're going to go closer to the subject, you're not going to be able to get the focus. But there is a trick up our sleeve that we can use to go around that. Introduce diopters. A diopter set looks like this. A diopter is essentially a magnifying glass that we put in front of the lens in order to minimize the focus distance. So essentially what you can do is you can take a lens that's not a macro lens, put a diopter in front of it, if you have the right step down rings in this case, and you can get really close to the subject. It's going to allow you to have less lenses but more possibilities. At f2, this makes it a fairly fast lens. It means that the aperture can open up enough to let more light in. And that's cool for us because that gives us the possibility to shoot in low light. The rule of thumb is the lower the f-stop, the better it is. Okay, so in terms of the build quality, this thing is built like a tank. I mean, it's literally metal and glass. Now, keep in mind that this is a Soviet lens, and let me sprinkle a little bit of history on this. This was made from 1955 to 1992. Supposedly, the Russians took over the German lens assembly line. That was for Carl Zeiss lens. If I am not mistaken, that was a 58mm. So supposedly, that's how the 58mm focal length came to be. We have the aperture ring on the back, and then we have the focus ring on the front. Now, aperture ring is not clickless, so you can hear the clicking sound. Now, the focus ring is a little stiff. Now, that may be due to the fact that this is an old vintage lens. This is how it should be for comparison. This is a Sony. It's super smooth, smooth like butter. That creates a bit of a problem with these vintage lenses. If you were to put a follow focus system on it, let's say like the Nucleus Nano that I have here, something like that, that's for pulling focus in and out. you got to make sure that the motor that you are using is going to be capable enough to move this around. You might have to use like a Nucleus M or a similar type, or you might have to switch to the manual focus pull system. In terms of the mount type, these came out in various mount types from M39 to an M42. Now the version that I have here, this is an M42 mount type, which was originally designed for the Zenit Soviet SLR cameras. These lenses came as a kit lens on them. And if you were to adapt them today to the modern DSLR or your camera, just make sure that you get the right mount type or the right adapter. So the one that I'm using is the M42 to an NEX, and actually my lens came with the adapter already. So it is one of these screw-on adapters. So you just screw it on like so. And I'm not a huge fan of these screw-on adapters because sometimes when you're trying to move or adjust the aperture, even though you can hear it, you might inadvertently be loosening the adapter. You don't want that. So now that we have gotten all of this technical stuff out of the way, it is time to jump into the real world, go outside, and use this lens. We start off during the day. When the sun is high up, it's very bright outside, and you can see the flaring, which you can get by shooting into the sun. In my opinion, it can be a very desirable effect in some cases. Off the bat, you gotta notice that I had to stop down all the way to an f/16 and lower my ISO to 200. I found the colors to be washed out, indicative of some vintage lenses, but you can boost saturation and bring back colors in post. Once again, the flaring that you get by shooting and catching the sun can be a desired effect with this lens. Handheld footage gets very shaky, even as you try to walk as steady as possible, keeping elbows in, as the lens offers no internal stabilization. In the shade, I stop to an f11 and try to do a little bit of manual focus pulling from the background to the foreground. In the evening, as you can see, the colors are still soft and desaturated. For a lens, it's not that sharp, creating more of a dreamy look, I would say, but things were about to change during Twilight. Finally, the colors were looking a little bit better. We were getting that beautiful bokeh in the back. Stabilized footage was starting to show the real reason behind getting this lens. It was all starting to make so much sense, and I was feeling optimistic because this lens works best in low light. At night, out of focus, we can get the best samples of bokeh. I find the bokeh colors to be very soft and pleasing to the eye, and as we rack focus, we get that nice flaring from passing by cars. Close-up tests produced pleasing results as well. The subjects were in focus and the colors looked good, and the bokeh was nice straight out of the camera. You can see more optical flares and light distortions from the street lamps, but keep in mind that the flares are present at the widest aperture of f2, because at f2.8 they were gone. I think low-light footage looked usable even at an f2 and 800 ISO with some light present. Having no light present, everything just blends in, and you have to start cranking your ISO to bring out the surrounding details. The flaring from the passing by car is really nice. And at ISO 4000, you can finally see the night sky. So what do you think? Is this vintage lens worth the 50 bucks, I mean to you. I probably would not use it during the day because, as we saw, the colors are desaturated and it's a bit soft. But anytime I want to get some very cool night shots, this is definitely going to be my go-to. Well, that's it for today, but I'm going to have new tutorials, tips, and videos for you every week. I think in the next video, I'm going to show you how to put a 3D object into your test footage. It's going to be super cool, so don't miss out. Guys and girls, I appreciate your time, and I hope you have an awesome rest of your day. And I'll see you next time. Peace out.